Hello and welcome to Levels Plus Whenever, episode 175. And we'll be taking a break from ranking things for a little bit. I'm going to talk about some games I want to see re-released instead. And we're going to talk about Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream for the Switch instead. But before we do that, I want to share some book updates. So, Isolate Volume 3 is currently being peer-reviewed, so I've got a little bit of idle time while my friends give it a look over. So I'm working on some other books. So I'm tackling the art and history of Isolate. Here's the title page. I'll give you a very quick preview of how it's coming along. So far, I'm really just in the history section, and the history section is incredibly dense. Like, I'm already at 40-something pages here. But my goal is to kind of get through a lot of the textual history and then get into the artistic history. So it's going to start with a lot of text, and that's kind of what's happened down here is just, like, there's a little bit of art introduction, but then it's a lot of text. And that's okay. I don't mind this being text heavy. I mean, this is, again, one of those books that's probably more for me than anyone else, but at the same time, if people eventually get into Isolate and want to know so much more about it, this will be an incredible resource for them. I've also got the design kind of put in place for Black Blood: The Damned Rises. So this is the title page. I've started writing it. It's very exciting. There's not much here yet, so you can enjoy that little preview and pause it if you want to read the first page and a half. It's going to be fun to write this because it's just different. It's a different world, different characters, different personalities, different stuff happening. I mean, this is a magically infused world full of elves fighting an undead army. Isolate's not that at all. So I'm pretty excited about both of these projects, and we'll share some updates as they get further along. All right, let's start talking about those games I would love to see re-released. I just want to have these games be something that I could play on a Switch or a PS5. Those are basically my priorities. So to start us off, this is sorted by company, by the way. So it starts with Nintendo, then moves to Capcom, Konami, etc. So let's begin with Nintendo. And, you know, Nintendo's done a pretty adequate job of re-releasing a lot of their games through Nintendo Switch Online. But there's a few that I would like to see. Zelda 4 Swords Adventures, I mentioned this in the recent Zelda video, that I think it would be a great fit on NSO. They'd have to do a little bit more work to make it happen properly with 4-player, but I think that it would be worth the effort to figure that out. It's a really great game, even in solo, and I would just love to be able to play it again. Fire Emblem, the 3DS games that are not Fates, would love to see brought to the Switch somehow. I think Awakening and Echoes are really solid. I have sung the praises of The Last Story enough on this channel that it has been a little bit, so I'll just quickly reiterate that I think The Last Story is a deeply underappreciated game that was probably on the wrong hardware for its full vision, but if they were to remaster it, they could make that game sing and it would be so good. I also want to see the Hotel Dusk games get the Another Code recollection treatment. I think that they would work really well in a similar format. You couldn't just straight up bring them because of the touchscreen, but you can certainly modify things to make it work with a reimagined version of those games. Kyle Hyde deserves more praise than he gets. For Capcom, we'll briefly skip ahead because I'll just knock out the trilogy of Mega Man Legends adjacent titles. I think that Mega Man Legends collection has to be in the works by now, right? They've released everything else beyond offshoots in weird classic and X games and Battle Network games. Let's just get Legends out there. Let's put these 3 games together. But the one that I probably want to see the most is Alien vs. Predator. It is arguably Capcom's best beat 'em up, and due to licensing hell, it just has never been re-released. I would love it if Capcom would just get the game out. Just charge $15 for the game. I don't care. Just get it out there. I want to play it legally. For Konami, I have a lot of N64 games. In fact, I have a lot of games for them in general. There's still a lot of their work that has not been resurrected. And I'm probably the only one clamoring for Blades of Steel and International Superstar Soccer 2000 specifically to get re-released. But I think those are 2 of the greatest sports games ever made. 2000 I have not played. I played 98 and 64 extensively, but I want to play 2000 because I have to imagine that it has a little bit more depth going on with it. I want to see Symphony of the Night on something other than a PlayStation 4. For goodness sakes. Rondo of Blood as well. I think that it's silly that Sony locked up that exclusivity. Those games should not be locked to a single system. So I would love to see Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood come out with the N64 games in like Rebirth, and just there you go. There's your middle of Castlevania compilation with Rebirth as a bonus. I just want to see the rest of Castlevania on a compilation at some point. I don't really want Bloober Team touching Silent Hill 3. It looks like they're heading that direction eventually. I would just like to see Silent Hill 3 re-released on like PlayStation 5 or whatever. I just think that game, as it was originally released, is pretty amazing. I only put 1 Parodius game, so I cheated. I want to actually have a Parodius collection. I want to play all these games in a legal way. I know that there's music licensing hell that's probably preventing it from happening, but I think that it's a series that deserves a compilation by M2. Throw it in Shot Triggers. It would be amazing. Good time. You can even throw a star Pelodier from Hudson in there, since Konami owns Hudson. I want to see the N64 Goemon games get re-released. They're easily some of the best in the series, and everybody seems to have high praise for them. I think they should come back out. Hybrid Heaven, unique, distinctive role-playing experience on the N64. Very, very, very much its own style of game, but one that, you know, Konami threw some ideas together and tossed it out there, and it's a decent time, and it probably would run better on NSO or a proper re-release format, so let's do it. I think I would love to see the PS2 Suikoden games bundled together. I don't know if we necessarily need to do the same degree of remaking that they did with 1 and 2. I think that 1 and 2 look good, but it's a little bit too sharp in places. 3, 4, and 5 are all 3D based games, so just a remaster would probably suffice. But it would be good to get the rest of the mainline series out there. Azure Dreams, I think just getting the PS1 and the Game Boy Color games out again would be cool. Vandal Hearts 1 and 2, same deal. The Grange Point is like a secretly great Konami RPG on the Famicom, from my understanding, and I would like to play it in English. Legally. I always have to throw that word in there. For Square Enix, I have quite a bit for them too. Not counting Taito since they're separate, but connected. It's fun. It's fun dealing with Square Enix and Taito. Dragon Quest VIII. I want the 3DS game to be brought up with the PlayStation 2 graphics. And that's really the only change. Maybe having the orchestrated soundtrack would be nice. But still, it's Sugiyama and he's shit. So, I think the elephant in the room, honestly, is Chrono Trigger. The game that, for whatever reason, Square Enix is not releasing on consoles. In any format. I think Yuji Horii has heard loud and clear at this point that that is something that people want. So I think it might actually be in the works. Maybe. They are starting to re-release a bunch, or not re-release, but they're starting to release a bunch of merch for it out of kind of nowhere. So I feel like it's time for Chrono Trigger to finally get a console re-release in some format. Ogre Battle 64. You could even just throw in the original Ogre Battle as well. I want to just see those added to NSO or released as a compilation of the two Ogre Battle games, and maybe with Gaiden for the Neo Geo Pocket. Why not? The Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, Terranigma trilogy. Those would be great to see re-released somehow. The Lupia series. I have the 3 mainline ones. There's also a Game Boy Color game, and I want to say maybe a Game Boy Advance game. I can't remember. But just re-release the Lupia games. They're pretty popular cult classic RPGs that I would prefer to see a new translation, but you know, it'd be nice to have them just in general be available on modern systems. Power Blade. I would love that on NSO. The Pocky and Rocky Super Nintendo games. I would love those on NSO. I would also be down with a full-on Kiki Kakai collection that throws in like the Famicom port, the TurboGrafx port, the Super Nintendo games, the Game Boy Advance one, and the arcade game, just for fun. You know, it'd be an adequate collection in terms of run and gun action. Sega. Skies of Arcadia Legends. Just get that on NSO already. If you're not going to remake it or remaster it, just get it on NSO, please. The early Persona games. Not 3, not 4, not 5. I'm talking 1 and 2. These have not seen a full re-release since the PSP. And it's the 30th anniversary. We might as well start actually remembering that the series does have a first and a second entry. And just get them out there. I think people would be happy if either the PS1 games or the PSP games were re-released. Muramasa, the Demon Blade. This is technically not Sega. Vanillaware released this with a different company, and that's probably why it hasn't been re-released. But it's a good game. I have some story problems with it, but on the whole, it's a good game, and I would be down to see it come back. It's I think the only Vanillaware game outside of Princess Crown, which I think did come back out on PC at least, that's not available. And that's kind of a bummer. For Bandai Namco, I only have one. I feel bad because like most of my Bandai Namco fandom is very limited, and it's like Valkyrie and Soul Calibur 1 and like their arcade history. But I think Soul Calibur Dreamcast version should get a re-release again. Just remaster that and don't touch anything else about it, and add online maybe, and it would be a phenomenal game to have back. I'm gonna just quickly dump Kodelka with the Shadow Hearts games, and we'll just continue on for a second. Lost Odyssey. This is another Mistwalker game I would love to see brought to modern consoles and not just stranded on the 360. Dead Space 2. Since we're not going to get a remake because EA can't let a game not make all the bank. All of the games must make all the bank. They're not going to remake it. So at least remaster Dead Space 2. At least remaster Mirror's Edge. Those two were like some of your best games in the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era. But, you know, at this point, EA is going to be swallowed by the Saudi prince, so maybe I shouldn't be that excited about it. Mule. Wonderful game from 1983. It's as old as I am. It's a game that's kind of a little bit mixed up in terms of who owns it. I think that the Button family has tried to claim ownership, but there's also some other people that have made variations of it over the years. But I would just like to see it re-released on consoles. I have the Atari Mini 400 Mini. I think that's what their little mini computer was called. And that's on it, but it released broken, which of all the games to break, Mule was the one to not do that to. But I would like to see it on like the Switch with online. I think that would be great. I also would love to see the original Bard's Tale trilogy brought to consoles. It's on PC, but I would love to have those games on a console because I just don't play PC games. Metal Storm, just bring that to NSO. Shatterhand, bring that to NSO. It's rumored that it's possible that they're going to re-release it through City Connections' Jalek Kell lineup, or that Tango Project is working on a remake of Shatterhand. But I just think that they could release the original game at this point somehow. So let's get that back out there. Kodelka and the Shadow Hearts trilogy, just put those 4 games together and re-release them. Yes, they're problematic in some areas. Yes, there's some major dubbing issues. But I think that they're really fun games despite their faults. And if we really wanted to improve them, we could fix those problematic areas and tone down some of the sexy costumes and redub and rewrite the games. But I think that those games are so distinctly unique that I would love to have them come back. Monster Tale is such a tragic game. It came out so late on the regular DS. Came out through a publisher that probably didn't give enough of a fuck by the time that the game came out to market it in any meaningful way. And the developers got pulled into an Epic Mickey 3DS game and then died. Tried to pull together some of the team back together to re-release Monster Tale on the Switch, but it never happened. I would love it to see it come back in a format that's a little bit cleaned up, a little less annoying to like backtrack, because it's so close to being like one of the best games in like an indie Metroidvania that I've played. And it's just so close to being there, and it just dropped the ball in a few key areas, and would love to see that, just the reimagined version come out that might fix some of those problems. Jumpman. I just played this game so much as a child, and I really think it's a crucial PC platformer experience. And I have a feeling, since Epix is getting some of its games re-released here and there, that it will happen. I'm just waiting for it. And last but not least on this list is a game that should be discounted from being included, but the original re-release through Johnny Turbo is no longer available. It's also kind of shit. And then Forever Entertainment got their mitts on the IP and made one of the worst remakes of all time. So you can't still play the original Night Slashers on modern consoles unless you owned it already, or you swallow your pride and play a disastrous remake. Alright, well, we still have a bit of time, so I'm going to switch over to a chat about Tomodachi Life. Tomodachi Life. I've made a So This webcomic based island that has my little goofy cast of characters. We will go ahead and just kind of tune in. That's very amusing. I've got all the characters here. I still have a long way to go to like get the relationships where I want them. I've already been surprised by Trent here. Getting married to Chris, the elf from another timeline, and having a child, which is just bonkers wacky to me. We'll see what Kristen's up to, and we'll just let that be for a moment. But this game is interesting. I never played the original Tomodachi Life on the 3DS, but I do find the appeal of this more desirable than with Animal Crossing. And I think the biggest difference is that I actually have a relationship with these characters, that I can be a little bit more forgiving about the monotony of things compared to Animal Crossing's villagers that always say the same things and don't provide a whole lot of variety after multiple days of playing. I think Tomodachi Life also has a bit of this problem, but it hits different when it's characters that you actually have some emotional attachment to. And I think that's kind of the appeal of this game. And there's more options showing up daily. So like you can get new food and new clothes pretty regularly. Getting items, it happens a lot just through character interactions. Let's see what, let's see, Ben's staring at a tree. But I really think that where this game shines more than Animal Crossing is able to have accomplished. This is Trent and Chris' daughter Bailey, which is just absolutely wild that happened. Follow Chad for a minute. Is that you just build like their personalities through these little quirks and through objects that they interact with. That they actually are kind of like the characters that I've wanted to create, that I draw and write for, and I've already gotten a couple ideas for like potential comic stuff, which was the whole point of me buying the game in the first place. It's also so much more flexible in terms of laying out the island. Like, I've redesigned this island a bunch already, and it's really just like, hey, we're like, it's as simple as this. It's as simple as, oh, I want to move this thing. I can move this thing right now. I don't have to like think about it. It's just moved. That's so nice. I don't have to like wait for it to happen. It just can. So I built like this little park, but if I want to move the park somewhere else, I can move the park somewhere else. I even have space to expand the island out a bit more, with just the 23 islanders I have. And at present, I'm really happy with just being able to have the island the size that it is. It doesn't feel like it needs to be bigger. I don't have to fight so hard to get it to look like how I want it to look. I pretty much kind of set this up already. And like, you have a lot less flexibility with like the interior of a house. For example, we'll jump into Dave's house here. So like, he has a circus house, but you can now, after a bit of play, you can change the the walls or the floor. So if I wanted to change Dave's house a little bit, I could do that. And like if I wanted to change the wallpaper so it wasn't curtains, but I wanted it to be like a rainbow or like clouds or whatever, I could do that, which I think is really nice. I think that's a really great like combination of things. Like let's say I want him to have this house, and now he's got a math circus house, and he loves it. So I think that's really neat. And as you go, you build up like happiness, and get rewarded for doing happiness things, which I think is really neat. You have a fountain that you can access, and there's just a whole bunch of wishes that you can eventually get. I'm probably not going to be quite close to one yet, but getting there. But you can just kind of see, like, there's a bunch of things that you can level up. So you can get goods for your characters to use, beyond what's in the base game. These quirks that you can add to your characters to give them more emotions and ways to respond to things. Lots of different room types. Amenities to expand, like, your village. Sending them on trips, getting different types of ground tiles, unlocking the ability to customize clothing and treasures and landscaping and interiors, exteriors, and even island objects. As you go, you unlock special places, like this Ferris wheel unlocked after a certain point. I imagine if I were to continue adding characters to this, like if I threw in all the Isolate characters beyond She, and got all of them up and got to like 30 or 40, I might get another cool building type. But I feel like this is what I wanted Animal Crossing to be, which is great. It's just a fun way to build a little place where little chaotic things can happen. And I haven't done like mad bonkers stuff here. It's really been pretty straightforward of just trying to build friendships. I don't have like characters that have beef with each other, so to speak. That can happen. I've seen it happen when I was watching somebody else play the game. But it's really interesting just watching the characters interact and trying to get them to do what you want. Like, for example, a really good example is like, I want Ben here. I want Ben to start dating Soya like he does in the comic. And Soya finally got a crush on him last time I played this. So let's see what happens if I bring Ben in here. It looks like they're just going to have a regular conversation. And they're going to go hang out outside, I guess. And we'll just follow them for a while. But you can see that Soya has feelings for Ben, and Ben hasn't gotten there yet. But like her face is all blushed, and that's just really cute. I have a couple characters that have tried to get together that I don't want getting together. Like, everybody wants to date Vivi. There's at least 3 or 4 characters that have a crush on Vivi, and I'm like, they have a crush on someone they can't actually be in a relationship with because they're already with somebody else. But that hasn't really like fleshed out in the comics yet, so it's just kind of interesting. Soya fell in love with Ben because of him finding a Shogi King piece, for example. It's just really silly. This game is delightfully silly. And like Chris and Trent just got together all on their own. Jenna's got a crush on Vivi, which I think I'm just gonna see how that plays out. That one I'm letting happen. But like Chad hasn't really made any moves to date Alexia, and Claire and Mike haven't made any moves for each other. So it's been interesting, and Bridget and Takara are dating. So that's also interesting. So it's been really insightful just kind of goofing around with this game and seeing what comes out of it. Like here's Bridget singing a lonely song over here on the beach in a robot suit. Because you can just have that happen. You can check in on any of your... See, there's Bridget singing about her girlfriend Takara, and she calls her Takas. Let's see what Marie wants. So Marie wants to try living with Alexia. I don't actually want that to happen because they're already in a house with people I want them to live with. Although I will say that one of them just moved out. So it's just Marie and Bridget in there right now. Having people live together is kind of fun. So yeah, this is basically what I've wanted from an Animal Crossing game. And I'm going to probably feel a lot more comfortable just putting this down after a while and not really feeling like I need to be constantly playing it. And that's fine. I think that this game is genuinely a lot friendlier about that type of experience than Animal Crossing is, which Animal Crossing kind of makes you feel bad by having weeds show up. There were weeds on this island when I originally built it, but since then it's gone. I haven't had a single weed come back since I've kind of set up the village to look this way. So yeah, I think that this is the game I've always wanted Animal Crossing to be. Right now, Vivi is doing some street dancing. And you can see Bailey has a bonsai tree. But there's only like 16 different objects that you can give characters that give them specific moves like this. Like there's a baseball and a soccer ball, but those are like the only sports items. There's like a few different physical activities like jogging and working out and karate and dancing and ballet. There's also, like, this is actually a good one because there's like surreal moments that when they have the little yellow bars above their head, they'll get these goofy little cutscenes depending on what they're doing. So like Dave here is having an adventure with his little animal thingamabob. But another thing that's like I'm a little worried about is like I would love swings or slide, and I don't know if that's an option because it doesn't look like it is. Unless more stuff unlocks the further I go down that chain with the levels that I build up. So I think the biggest issue I have with this is just wanting more ways to customize. I would love more quirks. I would love more activities. I would love more dialogue. I've seen that particular cutscene on the animal buddy there like 3 or 4 different times. With different animals, mind, but it's still essentially the same thing. So that's kind of my hope, is that DLC will come along, preferably free, of course, for a game like this, where you can just have more stuff for your little me's to do, and engage and interact with each other. But I'm pretty happy with this, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like this is a really solid game that fulfills what I want in a simulation title. And like this will probably be the only simulation game that I'll probably 100% into all the time. Because I can leave it and come back in like a couple weeks and buy some new clothes and buy some new food and build these characters' relationships a little bit more and see what wild things they're going to come up with, and not be as bothered by something repeating because it's at least with a different character or whatever. It's just a better way of doing this than I think Animal Crossing has managed to achieve in all of its iterations across the years. And I think the biggest thing is just being able to have characters that you know, or people that you know. Some people have gotten really creative and done some wild faces with the face paint feature. And I think that's really neat. That's not something that interests me personally. I did a little bit to like try to give people like Vivi's piercings, which another small complaint I do have is you can't put a nose piercing on a nose because the nose doesn't count as the face, so that's kind of annoying. But I just think this game's good. Is it game of the year? No, that's still Resident Evil Requiem, and I think only Fire Emblem is going to challenge that. Maybe Pragmata once I actually get into it, or something that I haven't played yet. But I think that this is a very solid way of bringing a bunch of different personalities together and seeing what happens. And I think that's the whole point. So, kudos to you, Nintendo, for bringing this back and basically giving the fans of the original game just about everything they could probably want in terms of relationships, remedying the biggest issues of the 3DS game, and just letting people have a good time watching their friends, family, characters they like, just wander around this island and do goofy things. It's great. And with that, we're going to call this an episode. Thank you so much for joining me for this wish list of games I'd love to see re-released and my thoughts on the new Tomodachi Life game. I will see you for the last of the Looking Back episodes for the rest of the decade until we get to the end of it. So, I hope you are looking forward to my thoughts on games from 2020 to 2024. Take care, friends.